Well, hello from SeatGeek Stadium on the outskirts of Chicago, where Ireland have been training today in advance of Saturday's clash with the All Blacks at Soldier Field. All 36 Ireland players fit and available after the session. We got to watch division access. Caelan Doris was taking a full part. All of the players who came in carrying knocks, as the RFU reported yesterday, will be available for Andy Farrell's selection on Thursday. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Cian, before you came here, you were over watching the All Blacks train in very different surrounds. They're all fit as well, but you said it was an interesting experience.
Yeah, like I wasn't here in 2016, like we said in yesterday's video, but I presume most listeners and viewers will be well aware that back then, Ireland trained in a pretty dodgy pitch. I think there was sounds of gunshots in the air. And actually, when I went out there, I thought it was the same venue as Ireland had trained in, but it turns out it was different. The reason I thought it was the same was because the pitch was just like really poor. It was really bumpy, but the biggest thing of all was you should have seen the goalposts. I put a picture of them on my Twitter if anyone wants to have a look, but the goalposts that the All Blacks were using were like, they would have looked out of place in a minis rugby club anywhere in Ireland. They weren't regulation size. Now, maybe, it was kind of funny at the end. I was watching their kickers, the Barrett brothers, Ruben Love, Damien McKenzie were practicing their goal kicking as Ireland were doing just here as well. And maybe they're thinking, look, it's fine if we can nail it in this small target, we'll have no problem at Soldier Field. But it certainly wasn't befitting of a world-class team like the All Blacks, and probably a little reminder of where rugby sits in the grand scheme of things in these parts. Now, I will say the All Blacks weren't complaining in any way about it, but it wasn't great. And then when you rock up here to see where Ireland are training in, and they've been raving about the facilities here, it's where the Chicago Hounds, the local rugby team, we saw Noel Reid, the former Leinster and Ireland player, was knocking around. He's coaching their attack, I believe, at the moment. So I think they have an indoor dome pitch if the weather wasn't great. They had a nice gym. So I don't think the facilities were as good for the All Blacks. But look, Ireland defied the odds in 2016, didn't they, when they had that experience? I don't even think they could run through their full session and they still managed to win. So I don't think it'll be used as an excuse either way, but it was certainly eye-opening when you just consider, the best of everything when you look at the All Blacks.
Yeah, well, that's what they're used to. But I guess being in Chicago is part of the challenge of coming on tour here and playing a game over here, and just it's also a kind of a thing. It's a window into. There's a World Cup on here in like 6 years' time, and whether America's going to be pretty windy to have a World Cup. But yeah, the facility behind us is pretty nice. It was built for the Chicago Fire football team, but they didn't never finish the train line out to it. They moved back to Soldier Field. The Hounds play here. The local women's football franchise play here as well. I believe they're moving as well, so it's a little bit underutilized. And it feels a little bit like that, but the pitch was perfect. Ireland looked perfectly happy going out there, and I think they put down a pretty good session. I think last Saturday, from the sounds of things, like all the concerns are that Ireland will be undercooked for this game. That New Zealand have played 9 tests in the calendar year. Ireland haven't played together since the Six Nations. The Lions haven't played together since summer. All the stuff we've been talking about. I think on Saturday, Andy Farrell got them in and tried to replicate test match intensity in a training session. I think it may have been a 15-on-15 match, or as close to it as they could get with the numbers that they have. So that would be, I mean, whether you can actually get to the level of playing against the All Blacks next Saturday. Sure, you've got 2 very good teams able to train out here on last Saturday in this pitch behind closed doors. Whether you can get to the pitch of what they're going to face after the haka on Saturday at Soldier Field is a very different matter. But what kind of do you get? Like, we've just been talking to 3 or 4 of the players. We talked to Paul O'Connell. You get a definite sense that they're enjoying themselves here, but they're also in a bit of a mood in terms of they feel like they are ready. There's definitely a no excuses mentality running through what they're saying, and there's a confidence to what they're saying as well. And they're looking forward to what's coming on Saturday.
Yeah, we touched on this yesterday. This is why they came over last Tuesday, was to have no excuses around the jet lag, things like that. It was going to be a mini preseason, I think, of sorts Andy Farrell wanted to do, and I agree. That's definitely the sense that it was a tasty enough session on Saturday here. Paul O'Connell used the words there was a lot of contact in it, because normally there wouldn't be a huge amount of contact in training sessions ahead of such a big game. So I would imagine, got people like Caelan Doris, he's the big talking point, obviously. Will he, won't he start? Certainly my reading of the situation would be, and having talked to Paul O'Connell just there now, is he is going to start. I know a lot of people will be probably surprised. We touched on it yesterday, big game to throw him back into. But I think the Ireland management's rationale is that game that he had at the weekend, and maybe he could have even played a couple of weeks earlier, but he was kept he was kept on ice. So we know Andy Farrell has no excuses mentality at all. So they seem very happy. Yeah, they went to the ice hockey at the weekend. It's a great city to enjoy, isn't it? Like we were touching on yesterday. They sound like they're getting out and about. I think a few of them did the boat tour, the architecture tour. And that's what touring is all about, really, as well, isn't it?
Yeah, they got to see the Chicago Bulls tomorrow night, a load of them as well. The man who just left in a Tesla behind us, Jack Crowley, did media, which will be running on the Irish Independent later in the week. Definitely a growing sense here that the big question at number 10, that he's going to get the nod this week. And I think it's very hard to quibble with that decision.
Yeah, absolutely. That would certainly be our sense that Crowley is going to start. And if only the viewers could see the truck that's going past right now. Big articulated Rúaidhrí with Crowley written on the side. It's the colour we bring here from Chicago. But yeah, that's definitely the
blue as well.
Impression. Yeah, certainly the impression that you get. And look, fully deserved and fully warranted if that happens. The team will be named on Thursday morning. And yeah, he certainly spoke of a guy who is fully confident. How could he not be? Look at his form that he's had for Munster across the course of the start of the season, culminating in that outstanding performance in Croke Park a couple of weeks ago. So I think it would send out the right message by picking Jack Crowley. He's the man in form. Obviously, people will be able to read his thoughts on Friday, but he doesn't really have a chip in his shoulder, I think it's fair to say, about how the last year played out. It's been more self-critical, I think, of himself, and he doesn't believe that he hit the standards. But if he is the one to get the number 10 jersey on Saturday, what an opportunity to lay down a marker, because we would have fully imagined that next week there'll be a lot of changes for the Japan game. Sam Prendergast, if he doesn't start this weekend, you'd imagine will come in and get a start for that. But if Jack Crowley can hit the ground running and continue his form that he's shown for Munster this season, then he becomes the man in possession again. And maybe Andy Farrell will argue that this was part of the master plan all along, and some people might doubt that. But if you could have two 10s vying for the same jersey and both playing well, it's a great place to be.
Yeah, I guess competition does always drive standards, and having that time out of the team maybe just made Jack Crowley realise what he wanted and what he needed to do to get back into the shirt. And we'll see on Saturday. It was the All Blacks game that kind of cost him his place this time last year. And it was the same challenge of trying to bring together a performance based on very little game time. But I think his confidence, he's coming in a far better place. The performance we all saw at Croke Park, he just dominated that head-to-head against Sam Prendergast. He was so confident. Not everything came off, but everything he did had
He was
conviction.
willing to try it though, wasn't he? And that spoke to me of a guy just like really confident at the moment.
Where are you with the back three? Because obviously Hugo Keenan's out, Mac Hansen's out, Calvin Nash is out. We're expecting Tommy O'Brien to be named on the right wing. Fullback, is it as straightforward as just putting Jamie Osborne in? Do you think Jacob Stockdale could feature in some way? James Lowe, we do expect to be on the left wing. Where do you think that balance lies?
I think it picks itself, if I'm being honest. I could make it more interesting and say, there are other options. There's Jimmy O'Brien as well. But realistically, I think, James Lowe, I think Tommy O'Brien, and what an opportunity it will be for him. I personally think that Jamie Osborne's best and long-term position will be number 12, but the fact that Robbie Henshaw and Bundy Aki are both training fully at the moment, to me, would suggest that I'd be surprised if it wasn't Bundy Aki. I'm not sure if you would agree getting the nod at number 12. He usually does when he's fit in terms of Andy Farrell. And I think because Jamie Osborne has delivered for Andy Farrell in the past, particularly the obvious standout is the South Africa tour last year, which no one really saw coming. So that credit in the bank of Andy Farrell, I think, counts for a lot. And that's why I would fully expect Osborne to be at fullback. I think it'd be very interesting to see Tommy O'Brien on the right wing. He's one of Leinster's, if not Leinster's standout player last season, went on the summer tour, continued where he left off with Leinster, obviously against lesser opposition, but what an opportunity it will be to, go up like a massive step up in terms of his career. Interestingly, when I was at the All Blacks training session earlier, just chatting to a few of the Kiwi journalists, the sense is that Caleb Clark is going to start on the left wing. I know a lot of Leinster supporters will be hoping that maybe Rico Ioane might have got a recall. It doesn't sound like it's going to happen. Possibly he might come off the bench, but I think that Caleb Clark, I'm a big fan of Caleb Clark. I think he's an outstanding player. He's had a few injuries this year, but I think that matchup between Caleb Clark and Tommy O'Brien, if that's how it works out, will be box office. I
think O'Brien has the capacity to change the way Ireland play and add a new layer. Like Mac Hansen's been brilliant for Ireland. I'm not diminishing what he offers.
Different types of players,
they're very different types of players. I think the out and out gas and the aerial ability that Tommy O'Brien brings. Think of the way Jack Crowley kicked Leinster out of position over and over again, found his wingers, found, was able to find players out wide with those cross kicks. It really opens up a new dimension. If Gibson Park goes to the air, O'Brien is going to fight for those high balls as well and get Ireland up the pitch much better. I think there's a real opportunity there for him to come in and offer something completely different, and even a counter-attack threat.
Yeah, do you think
Ireland are missing.
It's a really good point? Do you think, because he's not really the conventional Andy type winger, we know this buzzword that he used, he wants his wingers to be untidy, and Tommy O'Brien isn't really like that. So do you think he has to come in and be that untidy winger, or do you think that Ireland will actually go and try and play to his strengths? It's a fine balance, isn't it?
I don't think he's going to come in and start playmaking in the way that Matt Hansen does, because I just don't think that's his game. I think they'll play to his strengths. I think they'll use. I can see them going to the air an awful lot. They've had so little preparation time, so little minutes on the pitch. They haven't been together as a group since the Six Nations. I think it's going to have to be a simple enough approach from Ireland. So I don't know if they're going to try and ask a player to come in, start doing what Matt Hansen does. You don't want Tommy O'Brien to come in and play like Matt Hansen. You want him to come in and play like Tommy O'Brien and offer what he offers. And I think link up with Crowley in that way. So I would expect it to be a more traditional wing performance. Not to say he can't come off his wing and hit a line. I just don't think he's going to be throwing passes in the same way as Hansen. But I do think he offers Ireland something different. Like he would have a lot more than 2 caps had he not had so many injuries.
27. A lot of people think he's only 21, 22 breaking onto the scene. He's been around a long time and just has been really unfortunate with injury. But I think there's a definite sense that he's learned how to prepare in big weeks, because he plays 90 miles an hour. I mean, he hits hard, he runs hard, and I think he's probably had to learn to listen to his body a little bit. And it's been a long time coming. I know he made his debut in the summer tour, but like I said, this is a big it's a big step up. And just on the All Blacks team, the 3 positions that they're kind of up in the air are outside centre. Do they stick with Billy Proctor, or do they go with Quintupaya, who finished the Rugby Championship excellently? And Rico Ioane is another option. Certainly the sense there would be that it could be Quintupaya who could keep his place. The other spots are number 8. Do they bring back Wallace Satiti, who's had an injury hit year, and he was the breakout star last year, an absolutely sensational player. But Peter Lackey had finished the Rugby Championship at number 8, and there's a sort of sense that maybe they might use Satiti off the bench. So that'll be interesting. What do you make of the sort of the All Blacks?
Yeah, I mean, as you say them, it's not like they're household names necessarily for most Irish fans. I know they're going to be good players. You don't get to that level and play for the All Blacks unless you've done it, done it at a high level. Quintupaya played in the 2022 series against Ireland and kind of was disappeared after that, but has found his way back
injury.
in.
Remember Darcy Swain's clear out on him, and he absolutely ruined his knee.
But he's been good recently, and they're all good players. But I don't think it's going to affect massively what Ireland do. Satiti, he just hasn't had been able to put the games together. But what a weapon to be able to bring off your bench in the second half. I don't think Ireland are going to be losing sleep over who's in or who's out. I think that they know the All Black stars, they know the caliber of the top level players that they have in there. But I don't think any of those selections is going to change the game for Ireland necessarily. In terms of the Irish selection, the other big, I think, question mark is 4-5-6 and how Ireland balance their packets. We're into the post Peter O'Mahony era. O'Mahony was the regular starter at number 6. You've got, Joe McCarthy's not here, so there's obviously Tyburn is probably going to get drawn back into the second row, having been at 6 for the Lions. Potentially, you could go Ian Henderson. I think James Ryan with Byrne at 6. You could go Jack Conan at 6, or you could go Ryan Baird at 6. So they've got options. What you're leaning towards Tyburn at 6?
I just wouldn't be surprised. I have no inside information certainly at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if Tyburn was at 6. And I think Ian Henderson has started the season really well for Ulster. Another guy really experienced. I know it's not exactly like building for the future in terms of selection, but we know Andy Farrell is picking in the here and now. James Ryan is a given that he'll start. Look, I would love to see Ryan Baird get a shot, but he hasn't picked up his form last season, which was outstanding for Leinster. I mentioned Tommy O'Brien. Ryan Baird was the other real standout for Leinster, but been a bit of a slower start, I think it's fair to say, to his season this week. But I think we'd all love to see Ryan Baird finally deliver his potential on a consistent basis for Ireland, because we all know what he's capable of. But the fact that Byrne played at 6 in Croke Park and was outstanding for Munster, played 6 for the Lions as well, I wouldn't be surprised. That's all I'm saying. But there are good options there, and maybe bring Jack Conan off the bench if they're going to start Caelan Doris, because you need to have a bit of punch in the bench as well. Yeah,
and both players, neither of them have played yet this season. So if you start with Conan at 6 and Doris at 8, you're risking one of them not being able to make it, and certainly not being able to get 80 minutes, especially in Doris's case. we're talking about that Northampton game. It's a long time away. It's hard. I know he's super fit and he generally does get through 80 minutes. So maybe he's just that kind of such an exceptional athlete that he could get him through. But that there is a risk there, and maybe it makes sense to have that coverage.
Yeah, I think there is. And I think, to be fair, I think the medical staff are brilliant at getting the players back when they're ready. I think back the most obvious one is Dan Sheehan. I remember at the end of, just before the Six Nations last year, I think it was the Stormers at the Aviva, and he ended up captaining Leinster. And he came back after doing his ACL the previous summer in South Africa and looked like he'd never been away. So I think the Ireland medical staff, in conjunction with the Leinster staff and all the provincial staff, obviously do a brilliant job. And like we said at the very start of this chat, the session that they had here in particular on Saturday, I think that the fact that he came through that unscathed, I think will give them a sense of confidence that he will be able to hit the ground running. But he'll never know for sure until he hits the first ruck or makes his first tackle how his shoulder is really holding up. And I often wonder, when you're coming off the back of a big surgery like that, having the full trust in your body, it's a real mental sort of battle, I'd imagine, for these guys.
On the bench, I have a sneaking suspicion that Paddy McCarthy may be in line for a debut here. It's based a little bit on what people are saying about him, a bit about his form coming over here. It was unfortunate he was forced off with an injury. The fact that he was getting picked for Leinster ahead of Jack Boyle for the Munster game, I have just a slight suspicion. I think he'll get his debut in the next 2 weeks anyway. He'll definitely play in the Japan game. Do you have any inkling or do you have any sense that might happen? Do you think it's too big an ask?
It was such a disappointment that he got forced off so early in that Croke Park game, because you could see he built on the previous week against the Sharks where he was outstanding, particularly at the scrum. And he's a very interesting case study. Obviously Joe McCarthy's younger brother, he had his last season was pretty much a write-off, but curiously, he went on the summer tour and was one of only 3 players who didn't get capped. And I remember sitting in the team hotel in Lisbon asking Paul O'Connell, who was the interim head coach, why didn't you basically cap everyone? And he just said that he didn't feel that everyone was ready. Now, McCarthy was only one of 3 players. So to go from not being ready to play against Georgia, which obviously would have been a big test at the scrum, or Portugal, which was a complete non-event, it's some turnaround in the space of a few games at the start of the season to all of a sudden say, you weren't quite ready in the summer, now here you go to play against the All Blacks. But because he missed last season, Jack Boyle really stole a march in him. And I think if you speak to, and you have, I think a lot of people would predict that Paddy McCarthy's ceiling is potentially higher than Jack Boyle. And I think Jack Boyle has done brilliantly since he's come into the Ireland team. But I think there's a lot of excitement around Paddy McCarthy. He's made the switch as well, let's not forget, like Andrew Porter, from tight head to loose head. And you can see the pure raw power. We see with Joe McCarthy as well that he can offer. But it'll be a huge ask to throw him in at the weekend. But
yeah, it would be. It would be a gamble. But Andy Farrell, he gets criticised for his conservatism, but he has seen something in players and backed them through before. And McCarthy just seems to have all clicked from this season. Just all accounts from his teammates are just he's come back different in pre-season. And maybe it was the fact that he went over and watched his brother on the lines and got a close contact with that level and went, I want a bit of this. But he's come back into this pre-season bigger, faster, stronger, looking incredibly fit. It's just a good feeling. It's not anything beyond that. But I just have a sense that he's definitely going to get captain in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know. His time looks like it's coming, and that would be a big call. Other than that, it's it's whether they go 6-2.
Yeah. What do you think, bench-wise?
They don't like on 6-2, I don't think. But at this stage of the season, with the fact that 2 of their potentially starting pack, or 2 of their 2 number 8s are both coming in off 0 minutes, I can see them sacking the bench full of forwards. And that puts Sam Prendergast under pressure because, Cian Frawley is the number 23 in that case. Alternatively, you pick one of your centres, or you go Jacob Stockdale, who had a really good start to the season and offers something really, really different in that number 23 jersey. But personally, I'd go 6-2. I just think that it gives you a bit of security around the fact that you've got so little game time. The forecast is not looking good for Saturday. At the moment, it's saying it's 80% chance of rain. Now, it's Tuesday. We're a long way out from it. But there is a risk that it's going to be a wet weather game. It's going to be down and dirty like last season's game in the Aviva Stadium. And that's another consideration. Where would you be on 6-2, 5-3?
They're all valid points. I wouldn't be surprised to see them go to the 5-3. We know Andy Farrell likes to have a big centre on the bench. I know Stuart McCloskey is an option as well, but I think Robbie Henshaw, I think a lot of people have been very quick to write Robbie Henshaw off. I know he's got a lot of miles on the clock in terms of how young he broke into the team, how long he's been playing for Ireland, but I think there's still more left in Robbie Henshaw, and I think he'd probably feel like he's a point to prove after being left out of the Lions squad in the summer as well. So in that regard, I wouldn't be surprised if they went with the 5-3 and you have Craig Casey, Sam Prendergast and Robbie Henshaw potentially as the backs. But I think your case for a 6-2 certainly stacks up as well. I can see the argument there.
Well, the Windy City is living up to his name. It's threatening to knock my phone over. So I think it's time to wrap up, to leave this giant car park in the middle of nowhere near Chicago Airport. We've got an ice hockey game to go to. We're going to see the Blackhawks tonight. We'll bring you the latest from the Ireland camp and when the teams are named on the All Blacks camp on Thursday. But for now, it's goodbye from Chicago.